The Sopranos follows New Jersey mob boss Tony Soprano and his associates as he navigates through life as a family man and the head of a crime family. The show is filled with colourful and challenging characters for Tony to face, such as Phil Leotardo, Carmine Lupertazzi, Ralph Cifaretto and Johnny Sack. One of the most prominent characters in the show is Corrado Soprano, aka Uncle Junior, the brother of Tony's deceased father Johnny Boy. I've hardly ever talked about Junior on the channel, but I do hope to do so in future videos as he is one of the most fascinating characters in the show. Junior really is one of the most lovable and endearing characters in The Sopranos, and it's remarkable when you consider he started off as someone who pretty much all fans despised. In Season 1, Junior is a force to be reckoned with, being a potential successor to the position of boss of the DeMeo crew after Jackie April's death, and thus being a rival to Tony, in spite of their close relationship, which goes back to when Junior used to play catch with Tony in Tony's youth. After a stalemate, Tony capitulates, allowing Junior to become boss but secretly having the Capo's ears behind Junior's back, happy for the feds to have their spotlight on Junior, which ends up being a masterclass move as Junior is eventually arrested and placed under house arrest pending the results of a RICO trial, something which he is tied up in for almost the rest of the entire show. Junior pretty much becomes a mentor character to Tony, someone who Tony comes to and speaks freely with, seeks advice from, and is comfortable around, until of course Junior's mental condition deteriorates. For most of the show, Junior and Tony have a warm and loving relationship. It's complex, it's nuanced, there is animosity, and there are definitely issues, some of which we'll tackle today, but ultimately Tony and Junior's talks on Junior's couch are some of the most charming moments of the show. Season 1, however, is a completely different ballgame. Tony and Junior butt heads so often, not to mention the shit-stirring of Tony's mother Livia, that Junior actually decides to kill Tony via an unsuccessful hit. This comes after Tony jokes about Uncle June being in the muff, Brendan, an associate of Tony's crew, being killed by Junior's right-hand man Mikey Palmlees, Tony stopping Junior from killing Pussy Malanga in Artie Bucco's restaurant, and a whole lot of other things. The two have an uneasy relationship, not least because the two are fighting for power and Junior happens to be a self-absorbed and petty man. But when it's all said and done, after Junior's men are killed after he tries to have Tony whacked, most of Junior's business is taken away from him and he is allowed to remain a puppet boss as a target for the feds, and Junior is later released from jail and enters house arrest. And over time, Junior and Tony somewhat mend their relationship. It starts off cagey, a few arguments in hospital rooms here and there, but over time, Tony begins to enjoy his uncle's company once again. But a question does emerge. Why didn't Tony kill Junior after Junior tried to have him whacked? Tried to make his wife a widow and his 2 children fatherless? Why did Tony essentially forgive Junior and repair his relationship with him when so many others, like Pussy for example, have felt the wrath of Tony Soprano? Well, Pussy is a bit of a different situation given he was a rat, but there's many different aspects to Tony taking out Uncle June. The first thing to remember is that Tony was going to kill Junior. He had everything planned, and most of Junior's subordinates were taken out beforehand. He was only spared because he was arrested and in the feds' hands, so Tony couldn't get to him. So it's interesting to ponder how different things could have turned out if Junior hadn't essentially been saved by the FBI. But putting that to aside, he could have still taken his revenge when Junior got out and was sent home. So Tony and Junior's complex relationship has to be factored into Tony's decision to pretty much forego the murder attempt. We see that Tony has a lot of trouble coming to terms with his family being less than perfect. We see, for example, he would rather remain willfully ignorant of the fact that his father was a man who did not treat him and his mother right, but instead chooses to put the blame entirely on Livia. It takes him a long while and a lot of therapy to even accept that his mother was a sociopath who is the cause for many of his issues. But perhaps Tony, somewhere in the back of his mind where the little boy who used to play catch with his uncle is, would rather ignore that Junior tried to have him killed and instead see him as his loving uncle. Tony also acknowledges that Junior was manipulated by Livia when he made the decision to kill Tony, who held a grudge against him for moving her into a home. In his own mind, Tony would have shifted the entirety of the blame onto his mother, convincing himself it was all her so he can still see Junior as untainted. Because quite simply, Tony still loved Junior, in spite of the hit attempt, and he believed Junior loved him back. Killing the man would be very difficult for season 1 or 2 Tony to do, and on top of this, Tony has positioned Junior into the position of a front boss, so it would actually be useful to keep him around to take the heat off himself, and what with his capos out for the count, Junior was no longer a threat. You have to remember, Tony had 2 different relationships with Junior, his personal one and a professional one. On a professional level, within the rules of the mob, Junior was completely justified in coming after Tony, and Tony knew it. He was having secret meetings with the capos behind Junior's back at the time Junior was boss. He was seeing a psychiatrist, which is a complete death sentence in the mob. He even made cunnilingus jokes about Junior. That might be seen as banter by some, breaking balls, but consider a real-world example. Mob boss Vincent Gigante was said to have ordered the death of any underling who even said his name, in case it was revealed on a wiretap that he was a gangster. When you factor things like this into consideration, it's a wonder why Junior didn't whack Tony with his golf club right there and then. And even with all these justifications for killing Tony, Junior, to his credit, is clearly still uncomfortable with the idea of killing his nephew, as shown by him putting it out of sight and mind when talking with Mikey at a funeral, and his hesitation when talking to Livia about Tony's secret meetings. Junior had every right to go after Tony. It wasn't personal, it was strictly business. Junior failed, Tony removed all possible harm, so there was no further reason to have his uncle's death on his book of deeds. Tony's a pragmatist. He could forgive him on a professional level, and over time, as the wounds started to heal, the duo had a healthier personal relationship. Junior was trying to save face by killing Tony and felt he had no choice in the matter. Tony would have probably done the same thing in his position, so he holds no ill will. It's even implied later that Tony regretted making Bushman of the calamari jokes, not to mention all the other issues, Pussy Malanga, the truck hijacking fiasco where a trucker was killed, conspiring with the other capos, etc, etc. With his mother, things are different. Junior was a made man and Livia wasn't, and as she's not a rival for the position of boss, it stings more. Tony just can't find an avenue to justify her involvement in his supposed murder. He is forced to justify it as a mother simply hating her son. After the death of Johnny Boy, Junior took on a role equivalent to a surrogate father, so it would have been akin to killing his own dad, and given Junior wasn't a threat, and was actually more valuable to Tony alive rather than dead, Tony chose not to kill him. Also, interestingly, it is thought that Sopranos creator David Chase did in fact plan to have Junior killed off, presumably at the hands of Tony. But after The Sopranos was renewed for a second season, added to the fact that Junior was one of the writing room's favourite characters to write, he was written to stay on in the show as a significant supporting character. So why do you think Tony didn't have his uncle whacked and instead let him off the hook? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel and thanks for watching. Before we finish, I just want to thank my patrons Andre Millington, Nicholas Curtis, Dirk K and Daniel P, and also my channel members, the new on Goam 24, Rikers, Michael Awatwi and Damien Irving.